Welcome to Ahead of the Game, a podcast brought to you by the Digital Marketing Institute. I'm your host, Will Francis, and today I'm speaking with Niamh Delaney, a virtual assistant coach who's living the dream of remote work whilst building her coaching business. We'll talk about how Niamh moved from offering virtual assistant services herself to coaching others, the practicalities of building a personal brand, how she uses email marketing to convert social followers into clients. Niamh will also share her experience balancing work with the nomadic lifestyle and her tips for making remote work sustainable. Also, we'll get into the role that Instagram and TikTok play in finding new clients and why focusing on a single platform, or at least a couple, can be the key to success. Niamh, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I am very excited to chat to you and chat to your audience today.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. We've been thinking quite a bit about remote working. We've talked to others about remote working recently. But just set the scene for me. How is it working for you? What does working remotely and being a digital nomad look like in your life right now?
So for me, the reason that I wanted to work remotely was because I wanted to travel full time. And I did end up going traveling full time before I kind of started working remotely. And I met an Australian guy along the way. So it was really important to me to be able to work remotely so we could split our lives between Ireland, because I'm from Dublin, and between Australia, because he is from.
So I'm hearing that having a structure is actually really important. You know, you have sort of designated days, you have a kind of, you don't have to like reinvent that every week. Like, how should we structure our week? There's kind of an agreed way that the week and the working days are going to look, right?
Absolutely. I think like we have a lot of flexibility, but at the end of the day, no matter what side of the world we're on or where we are, our days are actually pretty normal and look very similar. And we have like a loose routine that we stick to. Usually don't work in the mornings and usually start work in the afternoons and evenings, regardless of like time zones or what side of the world we're at. And that kind of works for us, just being able to, settle in, enjoy the mornings, chill for a bit, explore a bit if we want to, and then get stuck into work in the afternoons.
Nice. Okay. So, and you're essentially helping your clients to do the same. You're sort of giving them the template of what you've achieved in a way and passing it on to them. Did you start out being a virtual assistant yourself then?
Yeah, exactly. So in March of 2020, we started a virtual assistant business. So we are providing admin and social media support to small businesses. And we were also full-time traveling at the time. And we did that for 2 years. So that was our bread and butter for 2 years. Only just like being an assistant for business owners. And then around 2 years in, we started to offer coaching for people who were looking to do similar things as we were, just because I was getting a lot of people saying like, how are you funding this full-time travel? How are you guys still traveling? What do you actually do behind the scenes that you're making this money from? So it was kind of a natural evolution into coaching. And then about 3 years in, we shifted to our primary focus being coaching. And now we're kind of full-time virtual assistant and business coaches. Just never expected to be here, but I kind of went with intuition and went with where like the passions kind of grew. So here we are.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because there's so much about that I see in social, this idea of moving from really knowing how to do something and providing that service to creating courses or a coaching business around that expertise. What's with that? Why have you done that? And why do you think so many people talk about wanting to do that?
So I think the reality is like, yes, it's great to be a right-hand woman or a right-hand man to small businesses and, support them. But at the end of the day, it is like, you are an admin assistant or a social media assistant. And like a career, you would eventually grow past that and you would want to get to the next episode and challenge yourself more and have more fulfillment and keep growing. And that is a way to keep growing and keep, I guess, fulfilling more sides of your passion, do more purposeful work, and also increase your income. Because when you're a virtual assistant or a social media manager, once you get fully booked with, however many amount of clients you need, you're at capacity, and you kind of have the option to then scale into an agency and like hire associates, hire team members, and you just be like the manager, or to scale into coaching. I kind of see like almost a 50-50 split of people in my world. Once they get to a certain level, they go one way or other if they're very ambitious and they want to keep growing. And I think that that's why, is because you can only go so far with the virtual assistant or social media manager, just because there's only so many hours in the day. Whereas when you go into coaching, you can like I run a group program and I host a call, like a bi-weekly call. And, we open that up to anywhere between like 15 to 25 people per call. So obviously it's more lucrative and support more people at once. And it's also, personally for me, it's very, very purposeful work. I feel like virtual assistant work was great, paid my bills, traveled the world, and we had a great time, and we had very little responsibility, and it was so fun. But now I feel like this is like my passion in life. This is my calling, and this is like what I was meant to do. Whereas virtual assistant felt like a job, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I think that's the thing, isn't it? For anyone who's kind of entrepreneurial, wants to be self-employed, I think, and I've been in this situation myself, you have this kind of fork in the road moment where you're like, do I want to scale this beyond just booking my own hours? Or, and it's a completely valid option, right? Do I just want to have what we would refer to as a lifestyle business, where we're not trying to scale something, we don't have some big exit strategy, we don't want to rule the world, we just want to book our time, fit those bookings around picking the kids up and other family obligations and other hobbies and things we want to do, and that's okay too. Do some of your clients want to take that approach?
Absolutely. A lot of the students that we teach will be, moms who are just looking for part-time hours and are going to be happy with that, or people who are, say, traveling Southeast Asia, want to work for, a couple hours a week, want to make, say, €1,500 a month and are happy at that. And to be honest, that was us as well for the first 2 years. Like, we were fully booked, I think, after about 7 weeks of launching the business. And, the odd client left and we replaced them, but we were never really on the hunt for scaling. Yeah. And we were just content with life for those 2 years, because scaling the business into this empire wasn't a priority. We were just like having fun, living our life, and not really looking to scale. And I think that that's absolutely valid as well. There are different stages of life where scaling will be, something you want to do. And there's also be stages in life where you're just going to be happy with having paying clients and leaving it at that. And I know a lot of people will be, fall into that bracket where they're just, happy out just to have the fully booked clients and then live their life normally.
In terms of building your business, you do that around really building a personal brand, right? Do you think that's been fundamental, and vital to what you've built?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, from day one, we built our business, and most of our success has come through Instagram and building our personal brand through Instagram. It's just a really great place to build community, build connections, network with people, and have people kind of ready when you decide to sell whatever it may be. Even in my virtual assistant business, I really prioritize my personal brand and just showcasing my values. And I really attracted the kind of clients that were very similar to me, because I would share things that maybe in the corporate world people wouldn't share, or maybe views I had or values I had. And I definitely attracted the right kind of clients to come my way. And I think that's why personal branding is really important, even as a virtual assistant or a social media manager, to just share a little bit about you and what your values are and what aligns with you, if you want to work with the right kind of people.
Oh, that's very interesting, that, isn't it? It's cheesy, but I recently saw someone say, put out the vibe, attract the tribe.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are scared of doing that. They're scared of looking unprofessional or putting maybe someone who could be a potential client, putting them off. But of course, that's, if you try and be for everyone, you'll be for no one, right?
Yeah. And I think by you should be putting some people off, because you don't, like you said, you don't want to attract everyone. You only want to attract, especially as a virtual assistant, social media manager, you only need, say, maybe 5 clients. So you only need 5 people to like your vibe and be interested in working with you, want to work with you. You don't need to attract the masses. And I just think that you attract aligned people. And I've heard horror stories of people just trying to please everyone and attracting all the wrong sorts of clients. And I also totally get, especially if you come from the corporate world, it can be hard to be I can curse on social media, or I can, say whatever I want, and the right kind of people will come my way. Because obviously, if you come from the corporate world, that's very much frowned upon. And it's just, it is something that definitely takes a while to get used to, but I think like when I started, I had nothing to lose. So I was just like, you know what, I'll give it a go. I'll see who comes my way. And I really did like attract like dream kind of clients to my business who then I went on to learn so much from, and were almost mentors to me because they had really successful businesses and I got to see inside of it.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, of course, that is why, so many people are risk averse because they feel like they have got something to lose. And I think it's why a lot of businesses probably get really frustrated because they look at independent creators like you and they want what you've built. They want the engagement you drive, but they're just too risk averse and too scared to have that kind of personality or any kind of vibe at all, really. So it's tricky. So you must have learned so much about digital marketing along the way in general. What channels have you had to really kind of master aside from Instagram? What other kind of strategies or tactics or channels?
So I guess Instagram was my first point of call that I kind of would say I mastered. And then I learned about email marketing. So that's basically, for anyone listening, it's when you offer someone something for free, and in return, they give you their email address and agree to go on your mailing list. So I would run all sorts of different free events. Maybe I ran one of my first ones was like Canva masterclass, and basically how to use Canva, the very basics of it. That got me 400 email subscribers, which was massive for back in the day. Nice. And I also had like PDFs with very basics, like how to become a virtual assistant. And then I recorded a masterclass, which was like, which is still my main freebie now, which is called the Roadmap to Freedom. And that's just like an introduction on like how you can, use your transferable skills to become a virtual assistant. And that's my freebie. And then I have email sequences to go along with that. So if someone enters their email, joins my masterclass, then they go into like a 15-part email sequence where then I will nurture them and, advertise my paid services. And I also will have just different events I have going on. I will use as a kind of a lead magnet to get people in. And that has been really successful for my business. And what I will say is, if you are in the early days of starting any kind of business, I couldn't recommend starting an email list sooner. Even if you don't have a direction of where you want to go with it, because when I was doing all these random Canva masterclasses, I wasn't doing coaching, but then I just was like, oh, loads of people don't know how to use Canva. And then when I went to offer coaching, I had a load of people on my email list who were already very familiar with me. They were already getting my weekly newsletters, and I wasn't trying to sell them anything for a long time because I had nothing to sell. So it was a natural evolution of nurturing them, and they were kind of like ready when I went to launch my first group program.
Yeah, okay. Wow, there's a lot to unpick there, isn't there? So the way it's great. It's really good. I love that system that you've got. So you've got this system that's very much about acquiring email addresses in return for freebies, which, that is one strategy. There are other strategies. Some people just do a weekly newsletter and hope that word spreads that it's great and it's worth subscribing to. Other people just ask for email addresses and don't really give a reason. There's a lot of that, isn't there? You see that on websites. But you've been really smart about it. You've said, I've created some value that I know people need. And you didn't even have a strategy at the beginning. You just knew that people needed how to use. You needed to know some stuff about Canva. But what you clearly learned from that is, what I think's great about that is the informational need that you filled. That attracts a very specific type of person. You're not doing random masterclasses about random things. They're very focused on essentially your tribe, your target tribe's needs. Right.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what I want listeners to really kind of take away from that. Like, think what your kind of target customer in their life needs informationally, create incredibly great resources, give them away for free, and all you ask in return is an email address. So I get that, but tell me a bit more about then this sequence. So just explain that to me.
Yeah, so once you say you sign up for my free masterclass, you'll get an email saying like, hey, Will, here's your masterclass. Click this link and you can watch it. And then the next day, I'll send you another email that's all automated saying like, hey, Will, how was the masterclass? Let me know how you found it. Come say hello on Instagram. Here's my handle at Need Team Virtual. Let me know how you got on. I'm encouraging them to just come over and start a conversation with me. And then maybe the next one will be like, now you've got loads of skills that that you can offer as a virtual assistant. Here's your next step. And I'll give them an introduction to my paid offer, which is the VA Academy. And then the email after might be a success story from a previous client who's done really well. Maybe they quit their corporate job. And, then maybe 2 emails later, I'll tell another story about a client's success. Maybe it's a stay-at-home mom who's, created a part-time job for herself by being a virtual assistant, because that will resonate with different people who've signed up to it. So, and then maybe I'll just do like a hardcore sales email with all the nitty-gritty of, the call schedule, the whatever is included, all the inclusions. And then I'll tell some like personal branding stories. So I'll tell a little bit about my story, why I was unhappy before I started my business, how my business has led me to, creating like a lot of freedom in my life and,
Nice.
financially and time freedom, all that kind of stuff. So it's giving them an insight into me, my client success, the program, and just little kind of teasers about it.
And what sort of time frame are you doing? Is this automated sequence dropping in people's inboxes in?
So I think I have 15 emails that go out over 30 days. So some, I think every second day-ish, but at the start, they're a little bit closer because I'm like wanting to get people to actually watch the masterclass.
And they're at their most engaged when they've initially signed up, right? That you're new to them, their interest is high, their intent is high. And I suppose it inevitably will wane in some way over time and be drip, 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 drip of these automated emails every couple of days. But different stuff, isn't it? You're not just saying the same thing like, hey, here's yet another reminder about the same thing. Yeah. It's you're changing it up, mixing it up to keep it engaging over that time. Do you have data about at what point along that 30 days people are most likely to sign up for? Is it the full program you're getting them to sign up for?
Yeah. So it's honestly hard to tell, because I would say that is like just my nurturing sequence, because these are people who have likely never invested in themselves before. Most of them will come over to Instagram and ask me questions. So I'll do the like closing on Instagram, send them voice notes, and send them the payment link over there. So I can see they're opening all the emails and they're clicking all the links. But then most of the time the purchase is done through that final 5 or 10% is usually over on Instagram.
Interesting. And just to clarify what you mean there, you mean you're talking to people who haven't spent money on courses and programs before. They're to them this is quite a big investment or a big leap. It's a big deal, isn't it? It's like maybe a big life change as well that they're embarking on.
It is. It's doing something completely different, completely out of the comfort zone. A lot of times they just want to have a little chat to me first, and just know that I'm like a real person, So I'll just chat to them in the DMs on Instagram, send them a voice note, kind of like check in, see if they have any questions or last minute concerns. I also then offer like free 15-minute calls if they want to actually jump on a call with me and chat through if it's the right fit for them.
Nice.
So those kind of things I'll do mostly over through Instagram. So it's a big part of like personal branding, I guess, as well, is that like my email sequence will also really reinforce my personal branding. And really what I'm aiming to do is push people back to Instagram, because that's really where I share like the real lifestyle me, like all the kind of good stuff.
And presumably then you don't focus so much on channels like LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook?
So TikTok, I actually do focus a lot on. If anyone is interested in starting a coaching business or has one, 1/3 of my sales come from TikTok. In my intake forms, I ask, where did you find me? And a lot of people will find me on TikTok, come over to Instagram, or come over to my email sequence, and then get converted through the email sequence or through Instagram. TikTok is a little bit of a harsher platform. I feel like it's just to grab people's attention. It's harder to kind of really get to know someone and build trust and build.
It's very top of funnel,
brand.
Isn't it? The TikTok, I find it's the way that you reach a lot of new people.
Yeah.
And you're right. I can see how that really fits for you. Like Instagram is your home. That's your sort of digital home online. Yeah. Because the way that TikTok works and the way the algorithm recommends so randomly, well, not randomly, very smartly, but it could be literally anyone in the world that sees your next video. But that's probably the way that a lot of people are seeing you for the first time ever. And then they realize if they want to get to know you a bit more, Instagram's probably a better place to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Got you.
Because TikTok
what about LinkedIn? Oh, sorry, go on.
So I was saying, so because TikTok pushes out primarily to a new audience, where
Yeah,
Instagram pushes out primarily to your followers, it's a
yeah.
good like lead generator, basically.
Yeah, that's how I see it. I see like TikTok top of funnel,
Yeah,
things like Instagram and LinkedIn top to middle, and then obviously email is very much where the you're really deepening that relationship and getting people over
yeah,
the line, I think, and that's certainly how it is for you. But yeah, of course, when we talk about personal branding, usually the word LinkedIn comes into that conversation. How does that fit into what you're doing?
So LinkedIn is actually a relatively new venture that we have taken at the time of
Mm.
recording this podcast. And it's just somewhere else we're trying to be. I think like when you're starting any business, I recommend focusing on one platform first. You likely only have the capacity for one,
Yeah.
maybe two platforms. So that's kind of what we did. Start Instagram, never TikTok after that. LinkedIn, that's actually my partner. He's doing the LinkedIn. And it's just a little bit of a slightly different tone of voice that we're using. It's still me and my personal branding, but we're definitely sharing more about like my corporate life and where the evolution came from and how we are doing what we do now and how we help people transition out of the corporate life. Um, because that's kind of just more the audience that I had on my LinkedIn page from my old corporate career. So
Yeah.
that's doing really well. And we've done a lot of lead generation over on LinkedIn, and we've had a lot of kind of connection calls through that, a lot of really good conversations. So we're only a couple of weeks in. So that's definitely a newer platform that we are navigating on. But it's definitely something that I recommend if someone is wanting to start a virtual assistant business or a social media management business. There's a lot of opportunities on LinkedIn for those kind of opportunities, because I just feel like on LinkedIn, people are really wanting to connect and to network. Um,
Mm.
so it's a really good place to put yourself out there for that side of the business. We'll see if it's how it works for our business, but going well so far considering we're just a few weeks in.
How, what kind of content do you think will work for you there?
So I think it's like I did like an in-person like speaking event, and I have videos and stuff of it. And I feel like stuff like that, talking about how like, back
Mm.
pre-corporate, like back in college days, how I would have had like no confidence, would never stood up and talk to anybody, to like where I am now, where I can like get up, go on podcasts, do public
Yeah.
speaking, and how my business has really been the driving force behind that. So I feel like talking about, you know, the kind of the confidence that the business has given me is a lot where we're going with that. And again, a lot about our personal branding. So how we started a business from scratch, and, how we've been able to scale it to what we have now, and how we support people who are in unhappy careers to pivot out of them. And so we're just
Mm.
changing the narrative slightly, that it's more the corporate person we're targeting, whereas Instagram is a little bit of
Yeah.
everyone.
Yes, yes, interesting. Do you know what? I'm just saying this off the record, actually, because Emma's just reminded me. It'd be good to get a bit of your career journey. So I'm going to ask you about that, but I might actually put it. Might when we edit it, we might put it at the beginning, perhaps. But anyway, so just tell me about your kind of your career journey from the beginning, because you were doing something quite different at the beginning of your career. Describe that to me, and how you kind of arrived here.
Absolutely. I'll try and summarize as best I can. So essentially, I went to a college in Ireland called DIT, and I did a business management degree once I finished school. After that, I moved to San Francisco for 2 years, and that was my first like real job. And I worked as a part-time finance assistant, which was remote. And then I also worked as a part-time receptionist for a startup. So I worked there for 2 years. And then when my visa came to an end, I went traveling for a couple of months, moved back to Ireland, and then I got a job as a finance assistant for a construction company and property development construction in Ireland. And I worked there for about 8 months. And then I realized that the corporate kind of life and that kind of business was not really what I wanted to do. The 9 to 5 life is definitely not what I wanted to do. I wanted to go traveling again. So I quit that job after 8 months, and I went solo backpacking, and I was backpacking around Southeast Asia for about a year, and I met my boyfriend along the way. And then we moved to Australia for 6 months. I worked in so many temp jobs, I was an admin assistant, I was a finance assistant, I was a receptionist, I was a part-time personal assistant, lots of different temp jobs. And then after that 6 months, we moved to Thailand, and then we started the business about 2 weeks later. And my boyfriend was a geologist, so he used to work in like remote Australia in a mine site. And so he would be gone. For anyone that's not familiar with the mining industry, it's very common in where we live, or where we are now in Perth. And basically he would be gone for say like 8 days or 2 weeks at a time, and then come back. He would be living in like the desert.
Yeah.
And then so he had a very, very different career. So yeah, we both had different kind of transferable skills that help business. But that's an overview anyway of my career.
And I mean, what so you clearly had this real wanderlust. When you were traveling around, or when you kind of decide to leave the job in Ireland, did you have any sort of idea of what you would end up doing, or were you just kind of living in the moment?
So I did a TEFL course. I thought I can teach English online, surely. So I did a TEFL course before I left Ireland on that kind of solo backpacking trip. And I thought, like, when the money runs out, I looked up that you could earn okay money going to Vietnam and becoming an English teacher. So I was like, I'll do that if needs be. And that was my plan. And I realized once I completed the TEFL that it's actually pretty difficult to do, and not everyone can teach English as a foreign language. And I realized that probably wasn't what I wanted to do, but thought like, okay, let's do it, I can do it. And then I never ended up using that. So that was, I guess, one of my plans, essentially.
Interesting, that isn't it? I mean, I'm probing there because I suppose what's nice about that journey is that it looks like someone who didn't really have some master plan. You were just kind of
winging it.
And I think that's good, and that's good to tell other people about, because the vast majority of people don't have this like linear master plan of like, I'm going to just take these steps that I can see in front of me and get to this place in the future. We are kind of just zigging and zagging around, and I think you would agree, I would agree, and most people would agree that when you look back, you realise you learned loads along the way. You just didn't realise it at the time, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think when I left, like, I definitely had some people who were like, what are you doing? Like, what is wrong? Where are you going? I was like, I just want to like live a little. It's just not what I want to do right now. Like, if it doesn't work out, I'll just come home and like get another job. Easy. I feel like I didn't have much to risk. I was in my mid-20s, had no obligations at home. And I also trusted myself that I would figure it out along the way, and that I didn't need to know what I was doing. And I definitely didn't know what I was doing for a long time. But I did meet a lot of people when I was backpacking that were doing lots of really cool, interesting things. And I'm a big, like, if I think back now, there was definitely a lot of influence there. Actually, one of the first girls I met was a podcast editor. She had a podcast editing business, and I just met her in a hostel, and she was telling me about it. I was like, oh my God, like, that's amazing. Like, I was like,
people do that?
Yeah, I know. And like, she had a really successful business. She was like backpacking around Cambodia. I was like, that's the dream. That was my dream anyway. So I think that like people I met along the way had a lot of influence and gave me a lot of ideas that like, had I stayed in Ireland, in Dublin, in my circle, there was no new people in the circle ever. And everyone just went to college and like did grad schemes and got jobs. So, if I had stayed in the bubble, I mean, I'm positive I wouldn't have the business I have now, just because there was no business owners around me to like give me that info.
And as well as all the kind of interesting things along the way, were there kind of, failures along the way that you had to kind of weather and learn from?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just didn't really care what I did in terms of working online. I was like, I'll do whatever. So I think I tried a few things. Like, I tried looking into doing like drop shipping, starting an e-commerce shop. I looked into doing arbitrage betting. Never bet anything in my life. So that was trying to figure that out, doing like horse racing. That was a random one. And I looked into trying to get positions with doing online teaching gigs, which obviously it didn't work out. I also just tried to apply for a lot of online jobs and remote jobs, which are notoriously hard to get, unless you're like in the country and you get the job in the country and then you leave. But I was I was in Bali at the time trying to get a job in Ireland, or really anywhere. I didn't care. So yeah, this definitely wasn't my first rodeo, and I think it's like really important for anyone listening. Like, if you tried something and failed, like, just put back on your boots and try again, because something will eventually stick. And as soon as I started the virtual assistant thing, I was like, this is it. Like I knew instantly once I tried it, whereas the rest of the things felt very forced. I was like, yeah, but this one definitely stuck right away.
Yes, I've definitely, I think I've trod some of the same ground as yourself,
Yeah.
and I felt the same thing about certain things, and then other things click, and they're like, oh yeah, this is me, this is my calling, and you kind of know, don't you? But I think something also maybe we have in common, and I always think, I'm very lucky to have this, is that confidence that you'll work it out. You talked about that. You just thought, well, whatever happens, I'm confident in myself that I'll work it out. I don't know quite how to give that to people, but I think that's ultimately what allows people the freedom to try things, right? Because I think a lot of people are actually very scared or cautious about that. They don't quite trust that they won't just fall completely through the ground and into the abyss somehow or something. I don't quite know what that feels like, but we're fortunate we don't worry about that, I think.
I think I weighed up my worst case scenario. I was working in Dublin in a job I didn't like. I was very unfulfilled. And I thought, right, if I quit that and I try something else, worst case scenario, I go back to another job in Dublin that I probably don't like and I'm unfulfilled. So I'm back in the same position. So I thought, like, you know what, at the end of the day, I didn't really have anything to lose for my personal circumstances.
Yes. Yeah, true. Yeah, same. I mean, that's what I always thought. That, worst comes to it, if everything falls apart, I can always get, an admin job or a temp job or something,
Yeah. Move back
but
in
anyway,
with mum and dad.
So for people listening who are thinking, okay, yes, that this sounds, it sounds that either I would like to take control and work nomadically and do the kind of jobs that work there, or maybe I just want to become self-employed and then personal branding will perhaps be a part of that. Like, where would you start?
So I would pick a business name, check if it's registered in the country that you're legally a tax resident in, register it, set up an Instagram page, and go from there. I would navigate setting up Instagram, learning how to use Canva, advertise your skills and services there, and then offer free work in exchange for reviews, in exchange for experience, and to get your confidence up. I did a lot of free work in the first probably 2 weeks of my business, and it landed me clients. It landed me a lot of confidence, which is the main thing, and reviews that you can then use in social media to show it looks like that you've actually worked with real life people. And it also just builds you connections and relationships that will likely lead to for clients, whether it's instantly or down the line. I think that's something that anyone can do without like much pushback, is like the business name. Yes, other things that you should do. And in an ideal world, there's, going through a program where you get set up from 8, from 0 to 100 would be amazing. But if you want to get started today, that would be my advice. Get the business name, get the Instagram, and just start learning and do some free work ASAP.
There's some good stuff there. I want to dig into that a minute, because people. So I'm often running like workshops and courses about marketing, and I get asked a question all the time: how do I get experience without having the experience to get the experience? It's that classic thing of people. They complain that job descriptions often say must have experience. So like, where do you get the experience to start with? And yes, I give them that kind of advice about do some free work. But how do you find that? I mean, how do you go about finding someone to do some free work for?
Yeah, I mean, be proactive. Say someone here messages me on Instagram and says, hey, Niamh, I've been subscribed to your email list for the last few weeks. I absolutely really resonated with your email about, when you were in Bali. Like, I was there, a month ago. Absolutely love it. I'm actually learning email marketing in my own business, and I'd love to offer you 2 free emails to advertise your offer in exchange for a review. Would you be up for that? I'm going to say absolutely, of course. So I just think sending something like that where you're showcasing that you're invested in the person, invested in their business, link it back to something they've actually said, offer them something with no obligation. If someone else sends me an inbox of that and I don't really need to do anything, and I'm going to get 2 emails for my paid offer delivered to me, and all I need to do is give a review, absolutely.
Oh, interesting. Right. Okay. And then using that social proof of the review and basically putting it anywhere that you are trying to attract and impress potential clients, right? Because that's one of the...
Exactly.
best, if not the best way to communicate that you're good at what you do, that other people appreciated it and thought it was good.
Yeah. And then you have the like self-belief in yourself that you can deliver that specific service because you went out, you've researched it, you've looked into hooks or email tags, and you've looked into different email platforms or whatever it may be that you want to learn. Just figure out what you want to learn and then just be proactive about it. And I think be okay with getting ignored, be okay with people saying no.
Yeah,
and it will teach you, to have hard skin. And that's what you need to have in business, is like hard skin and not really care if people don't reply.
Oh yeah, there's a good bit of rejection down the road if you start your own business, isn't there? And so, I mean, obviously you're very biased towards Instagram because it's really worked for you. But I mean, even if you try and step away from that, would you still say that on balance, your recommendation is that as a good starter channel for personal brand building?
So I actually think that there's no perfect place to do it. Different people will resonate with different platforms. If you've been on LinkedIn your whole life and you've got a ton of connections, use LinkedIn. Don't bother with Instagram.
Yeah.
If you're a person who hates social media, go to in-person networking events. Build a very basic Instagram page with just a very basic of your skills and your services. And then go to in-person networking events, connect with everyone, talk to everyone. Some of my students who are maybe some people who are like in their 50s and they're like, I don't resonate with Instagram. I'm like, that is absolutely fine.
Yeah.
We'll build a very basic page and they'll get clients from going to in-person networking events. And that is also a perfectly valid way to do things. So I would say to focus on Instagram or LinkedIn or in-person, and whichever kind of resonates with you most. I have students who use all different ones to get clients and are really successful. So it just depends on what suits best.
Well, there's that issue, isn't there? Whereas if you post on a network you personally spend absolutely no time on, there's at least two main issues there. The first one is you don't fully understand the kind of language, the lingo, the memes, the culture of that platform. But secondly, it's a known fact that your content does better if you are spending time on the platform, commenting on other content, looking at other content, engaging with others in your niche and getting involved. And to force that, it would be quite painful, wouldn't it? If you really didn't like LinkedIn and then you'd be told you got to spend 2 hours every day on it, that's not enjoyable.
Exactly.
So yeah, don't force it. Another thing I want to ask you about the startup, what are to get here, what have been your biggest costs? I'm thinking do you spend on advertising? Do you spend on particularly expensive software or other kind of accelerators in the business of some sort?
Yeah, absolutely. So to be honest, I would say our expenses until very recently have been relatively low. We've never used paid marketing. It's all been organic. So that's all been free, I guess, our labor. But and then other than that, our systems, we probably spend, my boyfriend actually does all the financial kind of budgeting, but I think maybe probably 300 to 400 euro per month on things like, MailChimp for our email marketing, on our scheduling tool, on our, any kind of softwares that we have in the business, places like paying for the pro Zoom account or a pro calendar. So around that. And then more recently, we've invested in social media courses ourselves, just to level up to the next level, and business coaching to help kind of build our offers behind the scenes and just get outside perspective on them. And that's been, the investments have absolutely paid off, but they are obviously bigger costs. And we pay a business coach about 750 euro a month at the moment. And we've just invested about 3,000 euro in a social media course. So that's a big investment we've had this month, but month to month, it's definitely lower. It's just a big month.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. That's good to know. That's really interesting to know that you yourself are constantly upskilling, because that's a big part of yours and my job, right? So that we can pass that on and really be at the top of our game. And also, you're right, business coaching, it feels like such a, well, it's not a very tangible investment, is it? But it could, as you've hopefully are finding, it's a game changer, right? Having that outside perspective, having that advice is crucial. And also, something else I wanted to ask you, how important is it to have any sort of support network around you when you're starting out with this stuff and building a business? Do you have a support network?
Yeah, so I think that when you're starting, it can be lonely. if you're trying to do it yourself. And I think there's a lot of value in community when you're starting, because you might not have people in your personal life who get what you're doing. I know that a lot of my students will struggle with that. I didn't really have anyone that knew what I was doing. So like I run a group program, and honestly, not that like my support is biasly amazing, but most of the building is because of the community. Most of the people see results because they have each other being like, you did it, you put up a reel, you did a scary thing, you posted on LinkedIn, your old corporate career. It's the cheerleading of the group that is one of the biggest things why they see results. I think that yes, business mentors are amazing, but I think in the early days, being part of some sort of a community program is really beneficial just for the peer-to-peer support, because it can be very daunting going from like, working 9 to 5 to starting your own business. It's very different. And I think as you go through your business and you kind of scale, then it's less of a need to have a group. By now, I just have like a really nice community of people I know through social media that are at my level that I would kind of bounce ideas off, and obviously I have my business coach, but I don't have the kind of capacity at this level of business to be in part of a big group because I'm just busy.
Okay, what are your top few tips for building leads for a new or newish business?
So I think to show up on a social media platform from a place of value. Don't expect that every conversation you have, every person you meet is going to turn into a paying client. Be genuine, provide value, and do that to the masses. And your name will be set in the room of the right kind of people. It's just a numbers game, and it's a long-term strategy. But I just think networking as much as possible and not expecting anything will lead you to results.
Yes, nice. It's you have to have that generosity, that willingness to kind of give your knowledge, your expertise, and your time away. But it always good things come back from that if you do that in the right way.
100%. Every bit of free work I've ever done, like I offer free 15-minute calls. People often ask me to go for a coffee. At the end of the day, I don't actually care if any of them convert into paying clients. I'm not going to do a hard pitch. Really try and make people sign up to work with me. If they want to sign up to work with me, amazing. If they don't, I'm sure they'll mention me in a room of someone they think that is a right fit. And I know it's just a full circle because I see it come back. I get people working with me who are like, oh, this girl was chatting to you and like she recommended you, and now they're working with me. And I was just chatting about all sorts, nothing really. And it kind of paid off.
Great stuff. So final question, what does the future hold for your business?
The future for my business. So honestly, we're like pretty happy with what we are doing currently. We have kind of two main offers, one-to-one business coaching and our group program, which has been our baby for the last like 2 years. And it's just kind of pushing those. And yeah, honestly, we've just invested, like I said, in a social media course on like short form content and how to like make amazing reels. So I'm really excited to see what that brings over the coming months. But yeah, pretty much a lot of the same. We're like at a really nice level. Our income is really nice at the moment. We have a really nice work-life balance. We have a lot of flexibility between Ireland and Australia and traveling, and our personal life is at a good balance. So honestly, we're at a stage where, like we said earlier in the podcast, like we're just kind of like content. We're not trying to like rocket launch something new right now.
Nice.
It's just kind of same.
Sounds like a good place to be. Yeah, great. Nice one, Niamh. That's great. Well, look, thanks so much for your time. I've learnt loads from you the time we've spent together. That's great, and I'm sure our listeners have too. Where can they find and connect with you online?
So the best place to find me is Instagram, and my Instagram handle is Niamh Team Virtual. So that is NIAMH Team Virtual. That's where I am most days. You send me a DM. I love chatting, so send me a message, and I will absolutely send you a message back.
That's great. We will do. Well, thanks very much. Hope to chat to you again soon.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for having me.